Welcome to Crushgasm, the podcast dedicated to the highs and sometimes lows of crushes. From their first to their worst, we're going to cover them all with a cascade of characters, including our guest today, a passport queen who wants her crush to take her to church, Claire Hawkins, a singer-songwriter, travel vlogger, book nerd, and serial oversharer who not only has a new single out now called Small Doses, but also has a huge crush on a fellow musician that lives in her neck of the woods, Hozier. Claire, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm excited to talk about your new single and video, but first, we're going to talk about your crush.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So first off, being a musician yourself, would you say that a majority of your crushes over the years have been other music makers or even people that have fell into the creative realm?
Definitely creatives. I would say, when I was younger, I definitely was like, oh, if he can play guitar, he's for me. But then I realized that was setting the bar a little bit low. So I think in recent years, I'm really just like, I'm a people person. So I love hearing everyone's stories. And I think I'm actually these days way more intrigued by people who do things vastly different from what I do. But that might come from the fact that, I went to school for music. I've gone to several music programs, and I'm always around musicians, and I love musicians. But I think my crushes these days tend to be more a little less music focused. But the creativity aspect is always there in one way or another, I think.
I like how you said setting the bar low, because I have friends who, when we were growing up, we went to a lot of concerts, and I was like, you guys only like people who are like on the stage playing guitar, and they're like, that's not true. So we played this game called My Boyfriend. You see a cute guy, you go, my boyfriend, and and mentally he's yours. So we saw this guy outside a venue, and I was like, your boyfriend. That's when you see someone that's like not as cute, and you give him to someone. And my best friend was like, no, ew. So fast forward to her inside the venue, this same guy's on stage playing, and she's like, oh, my boyfriend. I was like, you didn't like him a few hours ago, but now he has a guitar and suddenly he's your boyfriend. Okay, girl.
It's too easy. That's the thing. And also it feels like everybody plays guitar, so it's just like it's too easy. If they play I don't know, harp or something, then we can talk maybe.
Now not so much, but maybe back in the day, who were some of your musician crushes growing up?
Ooh, well, if we're going way back, I was a child.
Yeah, like your teeny bopper days.
Oh yeah, well, I was a child of the Disney Channel High School Musical era, so Zac Efron was probably for longer than I care to admit. I don't even know if he counts as a musical crush, but at the time I was like,
he sang in the second one, so yes.
Right, there you go. So from High School Musical 2. Yeah, because the funny thing is, I'm not really a crush person. It takes a while for it to occur to me that I have a crush on someone, which sounds really weird, but I feel like I was always sort of the last to know. I would your friends with the boyfriend game. I'd have a friend be like, you like that guy? And I'd be like, oh, I didn't know. So I always need someone else to point it out to me.
So you mentioned you were a fan of the Disney era, which I think is such a golden age for the channel, the last one for that channel with the Montana's, High School Musicals. Were you someone, for Zac Efron, did you go overboard with it? You learned every fact about him, you knew his birthday? Because for me, Backstreet Boys, I still know every little Tiger Beat fact they printed about them.
Oh my gosh, Tiger Beat, that's a throwback. Yeah, I don't think I was quite to the every fact, but I was pretty much there. I remember I had so many posters in my room because I would buy those magazines, Tiger Beat and Bop and all those ones. And I just every time you got a magazine, it came with 6 posters, and I would just put literally all of them up. And I remember a friend coming over at one point saying isn't it creepy having all these eyes staring at you? And I was like, no, it's fine. It's just Disney Channel on my walls.
My mom and her friend, my room was, as I went from Backstreet Boys to the pop punk, New Found Glory, Good Charlotte. So when I got a little older in high school and I went through my emo, I put all my Backstreet Boys stuff on the roof because I was like, well, they're still cute. So my roof was covered in Backstreet Boys, but my walls was an assortment of emo. And my mom's friends was it was a museum. They would come in and they would think, this is the weirdest room I've ever seen. How do you sleep? And I was like, it's comforting.
I definitely would get that. My mom would say to her friends, you should see Claire's room.
No, it's
Definitely
like you're the like sideshow freak of.
a conversation starter for dinner parties.
So this crush on Hozier developed after you moved across the Atlantic from New York City to Ireland, which was that's so cool. So, and you went to one of his shows. Were you just exploring things to do that night, and you went to his show, or was this show on your calendar for a while?
Yeah, it was. So I feel like I was kind of late to the Hozier following. I mean, I knew, of course, Take Me to Church. Like, I don't think it's possible if you were alive in 2014 or whenever it was to not know that song. But it wasn't really until I moved over to Ireland that I got really into his music, because I've always been. Oops, sorry, I thought I had the notifications off, but they still go off.
Phone go off yesterday.
It's weird. I updated my computer and clearly it was a mistake, because now I don't know where any of the things are in the new software. But anyway, so yeah, I had always listened to a lot of Irish music. It had always been really influential to me, sort of a bit of the slightly older generation, like the Glenn Hansard, the Damien Rice, and then even older, like the Dubliners. But yeah, it was when I moved over here. Actually, it was kind of interesting because Glenn Hansard typically does a December show or a couple shows in Dublin. And so I'd been in the past, and it's around when my birthday is. So it had been like a birthday present. Like I think my grandmother got me tickets one year, or it'll just be a birthday present that I buy myself some years where I'll go see him. But for whatever reason, he decided not to do a show that year. And it kind of worked out well anyway, because I was like, oh, well, Hozier's doing a show. I'd go to that. That'd be fun. And it was truly one of the best shows I've ever been to. It was just phenomenal. I like snuck up to the front kind of thing. It was me and a bunch of Irish teens there on dates. I was like, it's okay, guys. I have Hozier. I'm not single. It's all right.
So do you think your crush on Hozier would be as prominent today as it is if you'd maybe just like gone out to a pub that night instead of the show?
No, definitely not. It was that show where I was like, oh, you know how I say, like, I always need someone else to point it out to me. It was that show where I was like, oh, yeah, no, I like him.
You've said that over the years, something you've learned as an artist is that connecting to someone's music doesn't necessarily mean that you'll connect to them as a person. Do you think that being oblivious to that fact can lead to some fans being a little crazy with their love of musicians or celebrities?
Oh, I'm sure. Because the thing with, I don't think this is specific to music. I think just art in general can be so personal that you really feel like you know someone by listening to their songs. But what I've learned time and time again is that you don't, as much as it might seem like you do, which can be a really cool thing as well, because, you know, I think as a writer myself, like I hope that people don't just listen to my songs and hear my stories. Like what you want is to be able to connect with people and have them, you know, hear themselves in your music. That I think that's kind of the goal, or one of the goals. But yeah, when you're listening to and Hozier especially, like he writes such touching music, I could easily see someone sort of feeling like they know him. But look, I've never met him. I don't know what he's like. He seems lovely, but I don't know.
But like, you're not someone who goes over the edge. Like you realize this, and that night you saw in Hozier but in Hozier you saw like, oh, this guy is a good guy because you saw something genuine in him. Can you tell us more about that night and what made him stand out in that way?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's one thing that I feel like I'm going to ruin some things for some people, because once you start noticing this, you can't stop. Well, at least I can't. But years ago, it was pointed out to me how few female backing musicians just there are generally. And it's not that there aren't female musicians out there, but like if you go to a solo artist show and they have a backing band, I notice that you may see a woman or a couple women singing backing vocals, or like maybe on keyboard, but generally all the other instruments tend to be almost always played by men, which is just so discouraging, because obviously there's so many phenomenal female musicians and non-binary musicians out there. So when I went to the show, the fact that the backing band, I think it was 7 people supporting him, and more than half of them were women. So like including him, half the people on stage were women. And that just to me was it's such a small thing, but it makes such a difference to me as, you know, as a female person in the audience and a musician as well. It's the thing that I really appreciate about him is that he clearly makes an effort to make space for other voices besides his own. And he does it in a way where it doesn't feel like he's trying really hard to, you know, be like, look at me, look what a good person I am. And I think that's it can be a tricky line to walk, but it feels pretty genuine coming from him, which is great.
Didn't feel forced.
No.
He gave the job to the right person.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, his band is phenomenally talented. And one of the other really cool things that he does that I don't think I've ever seen this at a show before, is that he rolls credits at the end of the concert for every single person who worked on the tour. So not just his bandmates, but the people who did the lighting and the sound and even the bus drivers. And I just thought that was really cool and really gracious of him. And frankly, I wish that every artist did that, because as a bit of a music industry nerd, I'm really interested to see if, you know, do I know any of those names? Like, who's his publicist? Who's this, you know, well, who else is involved? And I just thought it was really cool as well to see just how many people are involved in putting on a show like that. He makes it very clear he's not doing everything. He has a great team behind him.
And it'd be really cool if, like Marvel movies, he added like a in-credit scene.
Yes. Oh, I was like, is he gonna come out and do another encore after the credits?
That would be cool. Isn't that crazy though? You mentioned like women, they're kind of sort of pushed to the aside in the music industry, but like really women are the most revered and accomplished when you think about Beyonce and Taylor Swift. Isn't that weird?
It's really frustrating because I think that, like, you know, you have some incredible female artists out there, but there is sort of like a limit to how many are allowed to be popular at one time. And, you know, you see these articles that are like, who do you like better, Lady Gaga or Ariana Grande? And it's like, well, why do we have to choose? Like, why can't they both be great? And why do I never see those articles about men? Like, I don't see a choose between these two male artists, you know? And I think it's putting limitations that just don't need to be there.
How have you been navigating that heavily male-dominated scene since your move?
Yeah, I mean, the sexism in the industry, like, that's everywhere. I definitely have seen it a bit more. It's a bit more in my face here in Ireland than it had been in New York. I had a couple, you know, I'll go to a open mic night, well, not now, but pre-pandemic, and I'll be like not only the only woman performing, but the only woman in the entire pub. And I just don't understand how that happens. Like, it's not like there aren't women here.
Aren't we like 50% of the population?
I think we're more than 50.
Yeah.
It's just so silly to me. Or like, I had this one night, and I kind of love this story because it's so ridiculous. But I was at this great pub in Dublin. It's called, and it's kind of the closest, in my experience anyway, that you'll get to like a countryside Irish pub in Dublin, because they have these traditional Irish musicians that are just sitting in the corner playing, and you got what should be a really noisy pub, but everyone's listening, and it's really phenomenal. And I went with a couple friends. I think it was the same week that I released the music video for my song Dublin, so very fitting timing on that. And I got asked to play a song, which was so cool because it was, you know, it's just a random Friday night that I was out with friends, but I ended up getting to play a song, and it was just so cool. I met there was another woman from New York there who was just visiting, and so I ended up just talking to a bunch of people, and it was really great. So it went from being a fantastic night to having a bit of a damper on it, because this man, much older gentleman, he was one of the traditional musicians there, and he started just like, when I say the quintessential example of mansplaining, it was so offensive. And like, my guy friends were standing behind me, just sort of half hearing everything he was saying. He was basically explaining, like, I think he saw me and thought, oh, she's a young girl, not that young, like I'm an adult, but she's a young woman. So he started saying stuff like, oh, well, you better watch out, like the industry's rough, like just because you got a pretty face doesn't mean. And I was like, okay, that's cool, thanks. I actually have a degree in music business, so and he was, oh, well, you know, but you don't know. And like, I was like, I really have a degree in this, and I've been working in the industry for a couple of years, like, and he just went on. Like, clearly I should have left the conversation a bit earlier. But it's, you know, that kind of stuff does happen everywhere. That's not unique to Ireland. It just has happened to me a bit a bit more aggressively here. It happens.
That's insane. Like, because male artists, they're all good and fine. But over the past few years, there was a time where I just stopped listening to male artists. I just felt like they didn't have anything to say lyrically. And I switched, like, my original blog was just female only for a long time until I stopped doing it. And even now, I primarily like to cover female artists. I just feel like they're better songwriters. I don't know. It's just me, though.
Well, I think there is something to be said for, like, obviously, like, there's incredible male artists, incredible female artists, there's incredible non-binary artists out there. You know, it's not related to your gender, but I think that because the industry is more likely to promote male artists over female artists or non-binary artists, you do have to work quite a bit harder to get the same exposure that a man gets. And so just based off of that, it's going to be higher quality female and non-binary artists that are making it because they had to work harder to get there.
Well, another female artist I talked to is a hip hop artist. I talked to her yesterday about a crush that is really rare around here. It's a crush that worked out. She's actually married now, and it's her label owner and her manager. And I asked her if she was hesitant about dating someone in the industry. Now, you said a lot of your crushes now aren't really music based. Is that any hesitance because you know what musicians are like, or?
I think yes, a little bit. if I'm, being fully honest, I think there is that element. I think also, like, I get along really well with people who are really different from myself. So, like, I'm a huge extrovert. Like, I can't go more than a day or two without socializing. So lockdown's been fun. But almost all my friends are introverts, or like very introverted to an extent. And so I like what I connect with people on is passion, like just having passion. So it's not important to me that it like is music or even is art. I think creativity is important for me, but like, I don't know. I'm really interested in hearing people's stories that are not the same as my own. And I think I tend to get like a little jaded or bored when it's, another musician and it sounds like our stories are kind of similar. Maybe that's probably a bit ignorant to say, but it's just it's not an intentional choice. Like, I would never say, oh, I can't date this person, they're a musician, but it just doesn't usually happen.
Okay, well, that makes sense. You want a little variety.
Yeah, variety's good, I think.
So your crush on Hozier has a foundation on him being a nice guy and a genuine person, but I mean, he's also good looking. We can't deny that. But is there anything about his artistry that gets your heart fluttering?
Definitely. I think there's something about the poetry in his lyrics that is really inspiring as a writer, and also attractive. He's a smart guy, and that definitely shows. Like, the intelligence in his writing is definitely a factor in that.
Do you think your crush on him has led to pushing you a little more in your own writing?
Definitely. Yeah, because I think there's so much in his songs that I haven't even I haven't really spent enough time yet to fully understand everything that he's maybe saying in his songs. And that to me is like, that's a good writer, is if you can listen to something, if he can be your top Spotify artist for the year and you still are, when you're hearing it again or listening again, hearing new things, that's really cool to me. And so that's something that I strive for as well as a writer.
Oh, that's good. So before we move on and talk about your new single and video, we're going to end this little section with a little musical make-believe. If you and Hozier connected romantically and then decided to create music together, what would the vibe and the aesthetic be of your duet?
Ooh, I have never thought about that. Weirdly enough, I feel like I should have in a daydream at some point. I think my music tends to be a bit more on the folk pop side of things because of my, New York City pop music upbringing. So I think that it would go, and his music I think fits very well with that side of things as well. So I think it would be a little more folk pop leaning than like straight up Irish folk. That would be my guess.
You would lighten his up a little bit.
Maybe, yeah.
So I got to hear Small Doses a little early, and it reminded me of one of my favorite albums, and that's Colby Calais' Coco.
Oh.
I'm waiting for her to do an album show for that.
I was actually just listening to Colby Calais the other day because I was having this like, throwback moment, and I was like, I forgot how catchy her songs are.
Oh, good. That album's perfection. So, anyways, where were you mentally when you were pinning this new single?
Well, it's funny because this was I think it was the last song I wrote before the pandemic. So it's sort of like this February 2020 mindset that already feels like a very different time. Because I was actually talking to someone the other day about the song, and I was like, oh yeah, and they hadn't heard it yet. And I was like, oh, it's called Small Doses. And they fully sincerely asked me, oh, so is it about the pandemic? I was like, no, had not occurred to me that Small Doses sounds like maybe it's about a vaccine. It's not. Just clarify that. So funny that did not occur to me at all in the last couple of months of working on it.
Like, yeah, I'm shopping it around to Pfizer and Moderna for a theme song.
I don't know, maybe I should be working on a placement with them.
No, I mean, they need extra help. Like, California's only at 52% at the moment.
Oh my gosh, Ireland is so behind on the vaccine rollout situation. So I'm just patiently waiting here in lockdown, but eventually we'll get there.
It's insane right now. I've got my whole family. I was like the vaccine queen. I was like, when's your appointment? Let's do this. Which one do you want? Come on.
That's awesome. Yeah, my mom got vaccinated super early because she was able, or not super, super early, but like she was one of the first people that I knew because she was able to do this volunteer program where they have people come and volunteer at the vaccination sites. Mm-hmm. And then obviously if you're going to be around all those people, then you need the vaccine as protection. So she got it back in like maybe late January, early February. And I was just, obviously making me, I was just happy she was protected, but also kind of jealous.
I know, definitely there's a vaccine envy going on.
Yeah, I think that's still very much a thing.
Yeah. You're like, I remember I kept seeing people post pictures of their cars, and I was like, oh, I wish I was that meme of like DW from Arthur where she's holding the fence, just looking in like,
exactly the one.
Let me play too. So this wasn't, I'm surprised this wasn't a post-pandemic song. So a lot of people, I feel like for me, every time there's a big event worldwide or something, the art that comes from it is so significantly different than what was before. Do you think we're going to see this or post-COVID, renaissance of art and everything?
I definitely think so. And I don't know if it's just me being an optimist, which I very much am. But I was joking the other day with a friend of we're about to launch into the roaring 20s as we had 100 years ago. I don't know that for sure, but like I said, I'm an optimist. I think one thing that I've really noticed about the last year is the way that people talk about like, oh, I was gonna do such and such. I should have done it earlier. I had a friend who was gonna run a half marathon and it like just got canceled right at the start of the pandemic. And she's like, I wish I'd done it the year before. Like people that were thinking about booking trips and they wish they'd done it before. And so I definitely think that we're headed towards this era of if you want to do something, do it. Do it now. Well, not now, but do it when you can instead of putting it off. And I think that that's going to be I think that that'll have a very interesting impact on music and on the entertainment industry as a whole, because hopefully I think there's going to be this new appreciation for the arts because we've had to go a year, not without art, but certainly without live music in the way that we are used to having it. And that's been awful to go this long without live music. So I think I'm hopeful that people are going to be a lot more enthusiastic about art and just sort of fun in general. I'm hoping.
I think they're going to be more rabid. I saw that Bad Bunny tickets went on sale, and it was like an insane grab to get them. I saw people waiting for Disneyland tickets for several hours online. Bad Bunny was insane. So yeah, people are definitely going to try to get back out there as soon as they can, of course, which is going to be awesome. I can't wait. I have a couple concerts that were rescheduled for October, and fingers crossed that I will get to go to them this year.
Oh yeah, I hope you get to. I think so. Like I said, I'm optimistic, but I feel like we need some positivity, some things to look forward to.
Well, something we can look forward to, your new video. Have you gotten to shoot that yet for Small Doses?
Yeah, we're still in the process of shooting it. I mean, I think it'll be out by the time this episode airs, hopefully. But I actually, just before this morning, we were doing sort of like a set dressing, costume fitting for it. It's super fun. I'm working with this wonderful videographer, director, and now very good friend, Florence Bradish. She did my Dublin video, and we actually met through mutual friends. It was kind of like just really, really lucky, perfect. You know, we met up for coffee, and I sort of explained that last video to her, and we shot it in like 3 days, and it was just great. And so now with this video, now that I know her, and you know, we've been friends for a while, and I know how talented she is, I just sort of gave her the song, gave her the lyrics, and I was like, all right, I trust you. Whatever you want to do, I'm down for it. And she's come up with this really fantastic concept that I think suits the song really well. And we're getting to be a little extra with it, which is super fun.
So we talked about we're going to go in full force when the world opens up and we can get back to doing things. But what is something you truly feel is better in small doses?
Ooh, I might have to think about that for a second.
Play the Jeopardy music.
Yeah, that's such a good question. Ooh. Because like, I feel like the obvious answers would be something like ice cream or chocolate, but I disagree. I think those are good in large doses. I think, one thing I have also really learned with the never-ending lockdown here in Ireland is how much I'm someone who needs a schedule. Like I really like, because I think for me, it's having things to look forward to. So I like knowing, all right, at this time I'm going to, I'll do my workout, I'll do my work at this time, but then I get to go, for my walk or whatever, or go to a concert one day, whatever it is. But I also have found myself getting like a little bit too type A, like going a little bit too far in that realm. So for me, in the past couple of months, I've really been sort of embracing this, like, yes, I have to have like things that I do and have responsibilities, as an adult human, but also just like allowing for the idea that like that has to come in small doses because we have to leave room for flexibility and like chilling out time, and also making art and just enjoying what, even when things are as limited as they are at the moment here, like just enjoying what we do have. So I think that type A scheduling brain is what I need to have in small doses.
In the same way, last year, like I love to keep a calendar. I always have a physical one. I don't use anything online. I like to write out my plans. And last year, once it was like March, I was like so upset. I didn't even need it anymore. I didn't buy one this year. I was like, why?
Oh, I'm the same. I had one last year, and because I was on tour last year, so I was like scheduling my shows, scheduling the trips, and all the things. I was like, oh, I'm gonna fill this planner up. I'm gonna have so much to put in it. And then after March 12th, I never opened it again, and it's still in my room, sitting on top of my bookshelf. And I'm like, I should just throw it out. I just don't need it anymore.
Yeah, because last year we talked in like January, and like you said, you're very optimistic, and that optimism was definitely in your interview, and you got to do some touring before your last album, Foreign Voice, and I know you had spring dates. How many of those did you get to do before, we could do anything?
Yeah, I actually was really lucky because the tour, so like if your listeners aren't familiar, I was on this very strange DIY tour where I was performing just in hostels instead of regular music venues, because I had released this album that was all about travel, and I wanted to tour in a way that was going to let me actually spend time in each city, instead of just going to a new place, playing a show, and then leaving the next day for the next place. So what was great about that was that I really spread out the shows. I think I didn't have too many at the beginning of 2020 because, it was January and February, and that's like the worst time to get people to come to stuff and to travel and all that. But I played, I think 3 or 4 in 2020. And then luckily, because stuff was so spread out, I hadn't actually booked too much too many future shows. I think the only one that was like set in stone with a date and everything that I had to cancel was in Lithuania, which I was so excited about. So I'm really upset that I did not get to go to Lithuania. But I was even in talks with a hostel company in Australia and New Zealand for later in the year. So that was something I had been very excited about that obviously did not happen. But hopefully there will be some opportunities like that in the future.
You're such a traveler, like we talked about. Is there like, do you have plans as soon as you're vaccinated and you can go, like you're heading there as soon as possible?
Not really, because I didn't want to make any plans that I was, going to get super excited about and then potentially have fall through. My plan at the moment is to get vaccinated as soon as possible. And so I may go back to the States to do that just because I'm not sure yet, like really have not planned anything. Potentially might go back to the States over the summer to get vaccinated just because it seems like that might not be a possibility anytime soon in Ireland. It's really, really slow here. But I definitely won't be traveling or playing shows before I get that taken care of. So it's kind of one step at a time. But I really miss learning languages as well. So I've played with this idea of spending a couple months while I'm still here in lockdown, maybe working on some new language skills and then traveling somewhere where I can use them. We'll see.
I know, that's something that people picked up. It was learning a new language, baking was a big thing. That was my thing. So many new, hobbies we got over the past year to be grateful for. So will Small Doses be on an album, or are you going to do more of the single route that's really popular?
At the moment, single route, which is not something I've done a ton in the past. I mean, what's really cool about this song is that, so I wrote it, like I said, before the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit and I kind of just wasn't really focusing on music because it didn't feel like the time to be hopping on a live stream or releasing stuff. I don't know, that some people did and did wonderful things with it. It just didn't really feel where my head was at the time. And so it was in, I think, October or November, I sent a couple songs that I had written to a friend of mine who's a music mentor friend is sort of how I describe her. But she was the one who actually, I just sent them for songwriting feedback because normally, I write a new song and I'll add it to my set list and perform it live. But at the moment, that's not really an option. So I thought, all right, well, I got to do something with these. I'll get some feedback. I'll work on them a bit more. And she was really excited about Small Doses, and she's a phenomenal producer. Her name's Katie Buchanan, and she asked if she could produce a song, and I was so excited. So it kind of came about unexpectedly. I knew I had liked the song, and I actually got to perform it back on the last two shows of my tour in Kilkenny, Ireland, and Berlin, Germany. So I actually have played Small Doses live. It was just so long ago, and I didn't know it was going to lead to all this. So it's been a very weird, unexpected route. But Katie actually produced my first single ever when I was like 17. Oh, wow. So it's really funny to me that I think I'm now the age that she was when we met. So that's like, I love full circle moments, and this definitely feels like one.
Oh, that's cool. How did you meet her originally?
Yeah, we actually met at an open mic night in New York City, kind of near, it's actually a neighborhood that neither of us live in, so I don't really know what either of us was doing there, but this is the age where my mom was still taking me to all my open mic nights, because and I'm pretty sure it was a school night, so I had to get home and do homework. A different era. But we met, and I had a grant to get a single out, and it worked out really, really well. And she, like I said, she's a mentor for me in a lot of ways. So I ended up going to the same music program for university that she had gone to. She wrote my recommendation. So it's very cool to get to work with her again after all these years.
So other than Small Doses, are you working on anything else right now you can tell us about?
I don't have any juicy gossip about music stuff at the moment. I feel like I'm still sort of just now getting back into music. I didn't intend to really take time off last year, but obviously touring, I was taking time off from that because we all had to, but I wasn't really focused on writing or recording last year up until Small Doses. So this has been a really nice kind of kick in the butt in some ways to just get back at it. So I'm trying to let myself just sort of experiment and play around with things without focusing on an end goal, because that's a trap I definitely get caught in. It's like, oh, but I have to have this EP and I have to release it at this time. And because usually I think both of the EPs I've released, I had to put them out really quickly because I was moving to Europe both times.
Like, go, 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 go.
Yeah, so I'm trying to sort of take my time and experiment a bit more and just sort of see what happens. I mean, especially, like I said, we're in lockdown still, so I have the time. I just gotta put it to good use.
Well, Small Doses is a wonderful thing to focus your time and energy on right now. It's a wonderful song. I hope everyone loves it because it's got those Colby Calais feels. And Colby Calais, big fan here. So can you tell us where everyone can find you online?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is clairehawkinsmusic.com, and I'm on pretty much all social media, I think, at this point. And it's all I'm Claire Hawkins, because Claire Hawkins was taken.
Darn that other Claire Hawkins.
No, and she doesn't even use it either.
Don't you hate that?
I kind of do. Except I think on SoundCloud and Clubhouse, which I'm randomly on as well, Claire Hawkins wasn't taken. So on those two, I'm Claire Hawkins. But see, now I've just complicated the situation.
You're like, they didn't get there, but you don't need them. You don't need that. So Claire, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today about your musical crush. And everyone, you can find all of Claire Hawkins' information below. And until next time, keep crushing it.